we're pretty fired up now after 5 hours of meeting, and it's really quite heartwarming to be here. These are one of the best times as municipal leaders when we get to recognize our volunteers, and we're really thrilled to see so many people come out to support our volunteers. I want to mention tonight that tonight is the first night that the Owen Sound Council meetings are being streamed online, and viewers at home, if you would rather watch the meeting streamed, you can go to rogerstv.com. And I know Councillor Twaddle in particular is going to be quite happy to hear that. So that's streamed live tonight on rogers.com. Yeah, he's not. I will invite everyone to join me in a moment of silent reflection, and I would ask that we reflect on the life of a former member of Owen Sound City Council who recently passed away, Mr. Ralph Stobie. Mr. Stobie served on Owen Sound Council from 1959 and 1960 for 2 years, and those of us that can recall that will recall that he was quite a force. So I'll ask you to join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Are there any additional items this evening? Any member of council? Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one about traffic and speed limit setting, and the other about ISA allocation and specifically the unfortunate events surrounding the Greys leaving the city.
Thank you. Any other members of council? Staff? Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to introduce the Doors Open 2012 brochure as well as our new community and summer activities guide.
Thank you. I have an additional item myself with regards to the volunteer appreciation event on Saturday, May 5th. Do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Could I have confirmation of the minutes from April 16th, please?
Moved by Colleen Purdon, seconded by David Adair, that the minutes of the regular meeting of City Council held on April 16th, 2012, as printed, be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Resolution moving council into committee of the whole, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by David Adair, that the City Council now go into committee of the whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We're now in committee of the whole. We do not have any public meetings this evening, but we do have deputations, and I'll invite Councillor McManaman to join me down at the podium where we will do our presentation of Volunteer of the Year Award. Councillor McManaman is the chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee. Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Brenda Daly for all the work that she has done, not just on this event, but over the years with so many volunteers. And I know that all of the volunteers appreciate Brenda's work on this event as well. So thank you, Brenda. We're here this evening to celebrate the work of volunteers in the City of Owen Sound. This evening is about recognizing the efforts and the achievements of those who dedicate their time and abilities to helping others. Volunteers are the backbone of many organizations. They're giving of their time and hard work, and they expect very little in return. Volunteers are people from all walks of life, all ages, all stages. What they have in common is the desire to make a difference in their own community and in their own life by giving of their time and expertise. These individuals we are honoring tonight exemplify these traits, and tonight we recognize their vital contribution to the vibrancy, diversity, and strength of Owen Sound and the area. Our first recipient this evening is Irene Surridge. I would ask Mrs. Irene Surridge to come forward, please. Our first Volunteer of the Year award is Irene Surridge. Irene was nominated by the Royal Canadian Legion. You need to stand on this side. Yeah. Irene was nominated by the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 6, Owen Sound, for her 30-plus years of selfless service to the organization. And anyone who's been to any function at the Branch 6 Owen Sound Legion where the auxiliary is involved sees Irene, and usually running and coordinating. Irene's been a very active member with the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 6. Owen Sound has held various executive positions, including President, Zone Commander, Assistant Secretary, and Committee Member. Irene is tireless, and no matter what the situation, she will say, yes, I can do that. There are times when the Ladies Auxiliary will have multiple functions happening in the same week, and Irene will be right there helping and leading and volunteering. The Royal Canadian Legion Branch 6 Owen Sound says Irene is the epitome of what volunteering is all about. She does these activities because she believes the Legion is there to support our veterans, their families, and their community. She is an inspiration and a mentor for other members in their organization, and they thought it was about time that Irene be recognized for her efforts and commitment. Irene's club activities include buying groceries for the branch kitchen on a monthly basis, helping to prepare monthly dinners for the Ladies Auxiliary, which I know. Yeah, he does. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we are at a public question period, and I'll ask if there's any member of the public here this evening that has a question to ask of council. And if you do, please approach the podium, and if you could just give your name and address for the clerk's office.
My name is Francesca Alvin, and I live here in the town, and I have a question. I was wondering if council would like an update on the bandstand project. Yeah.
That's a good question, and I have to say that the bandstand project is a tremendously successful project to date, and thank you to you and all the folks who are working so hard on that. I understand that in 2 weeks' time you will be coming back to council with a very fulsome presentation on all of the good news around the bandstand, and in the short term I will ask council to gather their pennies together to perhaps bring their bags full of pennies to the next council meeting, at which time you can then ask us for our bag of pennies. Thank you. Thank you. 2 weeks' time. Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Questions? Okay. Moving along, correspondence. A couple of items of correspondence. What's council's wish? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I just move that we receive both pieces. I did have a question, if I might, I guess to the city manager on the Joint Emergency Preparedness Program. My question is, so this is a approval for $9,000 or something like the neighborhood of $9,800. That's clearly not going to do the job. Is there? What's the plan, or perhaps a report, or maybe I'm going to hear right now?
You might be. Yes, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Haswell, through to Councillor McManaman. There will be a fulsome report come forward, hopefully at the next council meeting, which will lay out all of the costs and other matters regarding the new operations center.
Then just a motion to receive both pieces of correspondence. Okay,
motion to receive. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We have a fairly lengthy consent agenda. Council's wish? Councillor Lemon. Okay. Any discussion? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Question to the Director of Community Services, item number 9. Passing of the bylaw to amend the official plan Enbury developments. Our motion, or it speaks to this throughout this notice that we have here, that the whole premise is for residential lots. And it doesn't say it here, but it did say it in the media recently that they're reconsidering that for residential lots and considering more. And I guess my question is, as far as process goes, if the entire approval was based on, and it mentions it several times in correspondence before us, for residential lots, if it isn't for, if it's more than for residential lots as has been reported, how does that, what happens then? How does that change any of these approvals, or do they have to come back with all new approvals? Maybe, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, Council was also circulated on a consent application, and I believe there were, through that process, 4 applications. I just looked quickly to see if I could see the site and building requirements. In other words, if the zoning's approved, could there be a higher density of lots based on the zoning? And I don't know that. However, to create more lots through the consent process, council would again have an opportunity to comment. So while it's not clear on the zoning in terms of the consent process, that would also be circulated to council.
Further questions? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We are at reports. First report is with regards to 2012 City Hall Christmas closures. Councillor Purdon.
I'll move acceptance of the report for the Christmas week closure.
Questions, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. We have a report from the Director of Financial Services with regards to a financial services supervisor. What is council's wish with that? Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship. Could I ask that the Director just give us an overview of this, if that's acceptable?
Certainly, Your Worship. Certainly, as report indicates, the workloads change within all city departments and certainly within financial services. We're finding with a job opening at our SOS counter, we feel we can staff that counter adequately with current staff with some realignment of duties within, and perhaps help us move other initiatives along throughout the corporation with a financial services manager, and for very marginal added cost to the bottom line, none this year.
Okay. Further questions? There's a recommendation on page 91. What is Councillor Lemon?
I would move the recommendation.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We have a report from Director of Community Services with regards to a lease agreement for the McQuay Tannery Seniors Center. And this has taken some time to get to this point, and appreciate everybody's efforts on this. What is council's wish? Councillor Chamberlain.
Well, I'd just like to congratulate the groups working on getting the lease done. This group has moved forward, and then this is their 3rd summer using the space and having some very good attendance at events there. And the lease is for 5 years, which gives the group, which are planning to incorporate, some opportunity to go after some seniors programming grants and build the capacity of what's going on there. So I'd just like to congratulate everybody that worked on the lease. I think it's well done. And I'll move the acceptance of the, I guess we have to do a bylaw to, I will move the acceptance of the recommendation to do the bylaw.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question to staff. When this originally started, we talked about them working collaboratively, or this group, with the Bayshore seniors. And I noticed in your report, you say there are opportunities to do that. They're not specifically in the lease agreement, though. What's your understanding about that?
Through you, Your Worship, we will be meeting in the near future with the, it's now called the Bayshore Friendship Club, and we'll be, that group also needs a new lease for their space at the Bayshore, and we'll be continuing the dialogue with them and looking for opportunities, certainly for all the seniors to work collaboratively and benefit from the space that's provided at the McQuay Tannery.
That's good to hear. Just, I mean, the genesis of this was way back when, that the Bayshore group would work very closely with this group, and many times when the Bayshore, they were concerned about the Bayshore getting bumped and for other events that they could work here. So I know they've done, as Councillor Chamberlain said, they've done a lot of good work over the last few years. I'm just hopeful that collaboration can continue, because that really was the point in the first place, that the Bayshore group was quite concerned that they couldn't have a dedicated time and place guaranteed all the time, and that, so working with this group, I'm hopeful they can solve that.
Councillor Chamberlain?
I'd just like to add that I think there is great movement in that area, Councillor McManaman, in that they now have a website for the three put together, and they're marketing together and promoting what they're all doing at each of their spaces together. And that's a great incentive for them to start working together. There's nice visuals on the computer website, and that will get linked to the cities very soon. They're just finishing that off. That was done through the grant that they had with the, that we approved last year for the job creation project. So that's a very nice thing that's happened.
Further questions or discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We're now moving to item 12B4, which is a report from the Community Services Department. It's the execution of an agreement with the Scenic City Order of Good Cheer for the use of the Harry Lumley Bayshore Community Centre on July 28th. Councillor Lemon.
I would move the recommendation, and the direction being that we waive the fee for the use of money to pay for the projects endorsed by the city of South.
Questions, discussion? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. There's the question of the insurance as well in the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councillor Lemon, I might suggest that you might think about perhaps breaking this down into about 5 motions.
Yeah, I think that's what we have to do. Okay, well, let's start off with the seed money of $3,000.
So you're moving that council provides seed money to a maximum of $3,000 on the condition that the organizers repay this amount to the city within 30 days of the conclusion of this event?
Yes, we have done this before. We did it this summer, open a number of times, and I think that's reasonable.
Okay, to the motion. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. If I might, a question to the Director. This is a partnership with the Scenic City Order and the 150th Anniversary Committee. Am I right in saying that that $3,000 is the amount that was left over from the 150th anniversary?
Through your worship, actually more than that was left over from that, but we put it into an endowment on behalf of the 150 Legacy Committee. My understanding is that any proceeds received back would also be, we'd be asked to contribute to that. So in fact, we do not have that money on hand, but as Councillor Lemon stated, we have done this type of seed money in the past with other organizations.
I thought we discussed this earlier, and there was not all of that money had been invested, and there was a small amount left, and that's what this was.
Through your worship, it isn't $3,000 left. No, we put we put the bulk of the proceeds into the community foundation. It is, we don't have $3,000 left.
How much do we have?
Less than 1,000, I believe. I'd have to check. But the intent is, I understand that the committee will reimburse us this money from proceeds as they come in, and certainly looking at their budget, we anticipated they're going to have well over $3,000 come in.
That totally changes the idea as far as I'm concerned. I had thought this was the money left over from the 150th, and they were using the money from that for their event. As far as the city putting up seed money, I think that's an extremely dangerous precedent that we should go nowhere near. The Scenic City Order has run numerous events, and we haven't put up seed money before. So if, you know, as the director has claimed, then I certainly don't see how I could support putting up seed money. There's events all the time that we aren't going to put seed money up for. So anyway, that's my, those are my comments.
Councillor Chamberlain.
The Scenic City Order of Good Cheer are also putting up seed money of $3,000. It is because they're securing the band called Northern, and the band is costing $5,000, and it was supposed to be paid for by April 30th, and so this is why this motion came forward. The tickets are just now starting to be on sale once we approve this tonight, so once the tickets start to be sold, the money is paid back. And this was discussed with finance, and they said this is not setting a precedent. It has been done before. So that's why I don't think there's a problem with it.
Councillor Lemon?
In respect to the motion, that there is a precedent, Councillor McManaman. It's been done a number of times by the city, as the treasurer correctly pointed out. It was done for about 6 consecutive years to summer folk, and it was considerably more than $3,000. They didn't have the resources to acquire the ardent spirits that are served. And $3,000 doesn't go very far at the beer or liquor store.
Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship. Could I ask the director, sorry to put you on the spot, I'd like to know, in the last decade, when is the last time we put seed money up for, what we're talking about here is a concert, a fundraising concert, and the city putting up seed money for it. Anyway, if that's happened in recent years, I'd like to know when it was.
We perhaps haven't done anything quite exactly like this. I can tell you we have provided seed money to our banner committee to help them get their banners established before their advertising came in last year. That money was returned to us. Perhaps my director of corporate services can community service can assist me with some other recollection. That's the one that comes to my mind literally from a year ago.
Mr. Ritchie, I'll just let you ponder that a bit more while Councillor Adair has something to offer.
Well, it could be around the use of the word. I've never heard us use the term seed money in quite this way. We've talked many times about bridge financing, and I think we might be talking about the same thing, but seed money to me is when you give money to an organization in the hopes that maybe if they're successful, you may get some of that back. There's almost an implied, there's an implication in seed money that you're not really expecting it back, that you're giving it to seed something. I've never heard us use that term before, and I don't believe that we've ever provided anyone with seed money. We have done some interesting bridge financing for various groups, and I don't want to get hung up on the language, but I must say when I saw seed money, that did kind of set me back, as that's not my understanding of what seed money is, but we have done different kinds of bridge financing. Again, I don't want to get caught up in the language, but I would vote for bridge financing. I would not vote for seed money. I think they're very different things.
Mr. Ritchie.
Yeah, certainly, Your Worship. We would look at it as an account receivable, and perhaps we should have used the terminology advance. So I certainly apologize for that.
Councillor Boddy.
Yeah, Councillor McManaman, if you recall, I think probably the city put up some money to help us start the 150th anniversary a number of years ago, and then we were able to do fundraising and various things, and we came up with extra money. That was from 2007. My recollection was it was something in the neighborhood of $14,000, but I could be wrong. It was given to our group, and we invested it in the foundation with the intention that we would continue to grow it so that it would pay back income to be spent on various things in the community as a benefit to the community. One of the rules, as I recall from being involved at the time, was that we can't take the money out of the community foundation to use to do a fundraiser. So with this, yes, there's some gamble maybe that they're going to lose it, but boy, Order of Good Cheer and the 150th Anniversary Committee together, putting together a big dance with what I understand is like a Jimmy Buffett cover band down at the Bayshore again under a big tent, I think is a pretty good gamble. Yes, we're fronting money. We seem to be inconsistent on this as far as policies goes, because there's times that there's church groups coming to us that want the Bayshore for free, and we're saying, no, we can't do that because we've got a policy against it, and then we're turning around and giving a free parking lot and the building next door, the farmers market, for free to other groups. I'm going to support this because I think it's the right groups involved. Certainly the Order of Good Cheer has done some great things in this city and will continue to do so. Any money that's going to be raised that goes to the 150th anniversary group is going to be money well spent coming back into the community in the long run. And yes, maybe there's some risk, but I don't think there's high risk to the advance.
Okay, Councillor Lemon.
Well, if Councillor Adair would like to change that to bridge financing, I agree, because that was my understanding of the financing. It wasn't seed money so much as it was bridge financing, which we have done repeatedly for various groups and organizations. And so if you want to make that motion, I'll gladly change the wording, because I think it more accurately reflects the intent.
Okay. Councillor Purdon, wrap it up.
I will be supporting this motion with the amendments, if that's accepted, because I think this is how the city can really support a great event, and also it's a win-win with well-established organizations. I think that's a good way of getting good things happening in our community.
Okay. Motion on the floor is that City Council provide bridge financing to a maximum of $3,000 on the condition that the organizers repay this amount to the city within 30 days of the conclusion of the event. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor McManaman, that motion is carried. There are a number of other points within the omnibus recommendation provided by staff. What is council's wish? It looks like we're sort of moving from the bottom of the staff recommendation up. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I would move the recommendation from the start all the way down to the noise bylaw section, and including up to and including that noise bylaw section.
Okay, thank you. Council clear on that?
And that's proving that the event moved forward.
The council approves the exemption, grants an exemption in noise bylaw in accordance with section 3.4. That sentence. Down to and including. Okay. Okay. Everybody all right? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And what's council's wish with the next sentence? Councillor Lemon.
The security deposit, I would move that be waived. It's the second last.
Yes, I see that.
I was working from the bottom up. I thought it'd be interesting.
What is council's wish? All those in, any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you. Next motion from council. There's a matter of the waiving the facility rental. Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. Working from bottom to top, I would move that we waive the facility fee, given that this is a organization that will be raising money for the city. So it's within our, certainly within our policy and the intent of our policy.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I won't be voting in favor of that. I think we have, our policy also speaks to that amount needs to be paid back as part of the event. In effect, what's happening is our facilities division will be subsidizing this event to the tune of their budget will be subsidizing this event to the tune of $1,800 because they'll have set up, they'll have lost revenue because they won't be able to rent the facility to any other event, weddings or cross game or what have you. I think in the past how we've handled this, Councillor Boddy talked about, we've been sort of inconsistent with these policies. What we've done for a number of years now is charge that amount back, since we have no grant line budgets anymore. Several years ago we got rid of that, and that $1,800 is the amount what it costs to run it. So I won't be supporting the motion.
Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I could just clarify the policy CS37 for council. Certainly this is an event that meets the intent of the policy in terms of an event that would qualify to have the fee waived. The policy, as it was amended by council when you amended your grants budget, says the policy allows the city at the completion of the event to reserve the right to apply a portion of the donation to offset the applicable facility rental charge. So that's what we're looking for your direction on. This is a tricky event in that most of it's happening in the parking lot. If the sun shines, really there won't be a facility cost other than we won't have been able to rent the arena floor. But we have to hold it in the event that we just don't know today what the weather's going to be like that day. So it may be that it's less than the $1,800 that is described for you in the report.
Councillor Lemon?
Point of clarification, the halls could still be rented by the city.
Yes, they could, Your Worship.
So our risk is considerably less. I mean, we have a, what, 50-50 chance of rain, or hopefully less than that. But there's quite a possibility that it's not going to cost the city anything except the use of the parking lot.
Councillor McManaman?
Sorry, Your Worship, just point of clarification, that's not correct. We won't be able to rent the facility, the arena, either way, because we have to hold it until that day. Yeah. So we will lose the rental of the arena no matter what happens, because we have to hold it to see what the weather's like.
I agree, but the halls can be rented, so that doesn't impinge other income to the event. And
but you said our risk was nothing, and that's not accurate. We will lose out on the arena rental either way.
Yeah, just the arena rental possible. We may lose on that, but we won't lose on the hall or other uses.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor. Councillor Twaddle.
I just want to clarify whether the motion is to simply waive the fee, or the motion is to follow the policy, which would be that we would apply the fee to the proceeds.
You did.
I was under the understanding that our policy allows us to waive the fees for city events and for groups who are raising money for the city, and not just hold off the fee until after the event has happened, but in fact actually waive the fees. That's my understanding of the policy. What we have done with some groups that don't fit the policy and aren't really raising money for the city is we've waited until after the event to collect the money in order to help them, almost another way of bridge financing. So I believe that the policy is that if it's a city event or some group that's raising money for the city, which this is, we can waive, and we do and have waived the fee, not just held off the collection of the fee.
I think we'll go to the Director of Community Services for some clarification on the policy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The policy provides for the discretion of council. So in some instances, council could take the proceeds and apply a portion of that of those proceeds to offset the facility rental. In other cases, council may choose to totally not apply any portion of the revenue from the event to the facility. So it is at the discretion of council.
Councillor Twaddle.
So I think the clarification is the motion is then to waive the fee, in which case what budget line would that come from, because there is no money in the grants budget to cover that, and it would otherwise be charged to the facility, because we don't just pretend that that number doesn't exist. It needs to be charged to a budget line, and that has always been the practice.
Mr. Ritchie.
Through your worship, it would be charged to the grant line. And you're correct, there currently is no budget for that line.
Is there there's a lost revenue piece, but then there's a real cost piece to whatever it is. And I, you know, if we waive the fee, or if we waive the real costs, then, you know, the city is in fact subsidizing the fundraising activity for the city, which I have a little bit of difficulty with. So if the motion is simply to waive the fee and charge it to the budget line where there is no budget, then I don't support the motion. If the motion were to be to charge the real costs as opposed to the lost revenue, because there may be a difference, if the motion were to charge the real costs to the fundraising, then I could support the motion.
Councillor Lemon.
Your worship, in the past, when we have waived the fee for the Scenic City of Brochure, when they were raising money for the splash pad, and also for the Kiwanis Club, we waived the fee for the Kiwanis Club when they were raising money for the playground at Harrison Park. How did we handle that?
Your worship, those commitments by both the order and the Kiwanis Club predated the amendment to the policy, and so traditionally those groups have had those fees waived until their commitment to both those projects is completed.
How did we handle it as far as bookkeeping?
That would go back to Mr. Ritchie.
I believe, your worship, as my fellow director has said, those predated this particular agreement, and they were in fact waived, and I would have to check to see if we recorded them under grants, but we very well may have truly waived them and not recorded the revenue either, but I'd have to check. I can't tell you tonight for sure.
Well, we do have a motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion to the motion? Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We now have matter of insurance. What is council's wish there? Any member of council requires some clarification of this particular part? Councillor Twaddle.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. This is a real dollar cost. And I would move that, I think one of the options here was that the city provide the insurance, but that $2,000 be deducted from the fundraising total. I don't support waiving the fees entirely or waiving the real cost portion of the fees. This is a real cost, and I don't think that we can absorb that in some other budget line. It's not just an accounting entry. So I would move that we provide the insurance, but that it be reimbursed from the proceeds of the event.
Okay, to the motion, Councillor Lemon.
Clarification, if the cost of the insurance is less than $2,000, then they would just pay the actual cost.
Councillor Twaddle.
I think the motion was that we would provide the insurance up front and that they would reimburse us, so whatever the cost is.
Further comments, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. I believe we've dealt with all of the required decisions at this time. Moving along, we're at item 5 on our reports. Report from the planning assistant with regards to terrific, in my view, event and addition in terms of community gardens. And this is a proposal from the Canadian Mental Health Association of Grey Bruce. It involves 50 new raised beds at the St. George's tennis courts. What is council's wish on this? Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship. A question to the director. The removal of the tennis courts, I wasn't quite clear from your report. You're suggesting they would have to be removed at some point in the future, not this year or not immediately. Is that correct?
Through you, Your Worship, the master plan for Victoria Park and St. George's Park does see in the mid to long term the transition really at St. George's Park, including the removal of the tennis courts. That's certainly not in our 3 to 5 year budget plan, and certainly the placement of the gardens there, at least for 3 to 5 years, will be a great addition. I think the master plan did show a community garden space at St. George's Park, and certainly it's consistent with the master plan vision. The city has a tremendous respect for Canadian mental health. They have a great community garden at Alexandra Park, and Union Gas, who will be building the raised bed, did a tremendous job of building the beds last year at the United Way. So I think it's a tremendous project for the city.
Thank you. Councillor McManaman?
So they would just work around in this time frame you're discussing, they'd work around the tennis courts more or less?
They'll use the tennis courts as the base of the beds. The fence actually is a tremendous enclosure to provide for some safety from predators to a garden, and so they'll actually use that tennis court space without removing the tennis courts.
I'd be happy to move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Purdon.
Yes, I'd like to support the motion, and also thank the Canadian Mental Health Association for coming forward with a great project that not only I think will make that area look a lot nicer, but feeds people and really shows us how to do community gardening in the city.
Councillor Lemon?
And just one question, is there not enough space around the tennis courts where they could be without closing the tennis courts?
Well, I think, Councillor Lemon, if I may, the security of being within the fenced area of the tennis courts is kind of key to the success of the community garden.
The tennis courts haven't been used for a few years as tennis courts.
Oops. Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the floor, and we'll ask for the vote now. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We're now moving to item number 6, page 114. This is a report from the engineering assistant with regards to a fundraising event referred to as Jesse's Journey. This is waiving a $54.64 plus HST fee on the Bayshore gazebo as part of a fundraising event that is occurring on May the 7th. Well, council doesn't wish to deal with this. That's just the way it is. Shall we have a brave soul step forward? Oh, there we have a few now. Councillor Twaddle.
I would move the recommendation, including that we waive the $54 fee. In fact, starting from the gazebo they're really using it for less than half an hour. It's kind of like all kinds of events that start from the City Hall steps or the City Hall parking lot. It's not as though they're renting the facility and using it for a reception or something. So I don't think it really should create a need for a fee.
I would have to say I would support that if I was to voice what I was going to vote, because it's from 7:30 in the morning till 8:30 in the morning, and I think that it should be fairly open. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We now have a report from our Engineering Services and Purchasing Department with regards to consideration of a tender T12-07 Municipal Parking Lot 5 reconstruction, and the recommendation there. Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move the recommendation that the contract be awarded to E.C. King Contracting in the sum of $541,610.65.
Is Councillor Lemon, just to be clear, does your motion include the second sentence in that? Okay. Discussion, Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Question, there's a number of value engineering items listed here. I guess my question is the Director of Operations. So would those discussions and those recommendations come through the Operations Committee to Council, or how would that move forward?
I think through you, Your Worship. I think parking lots really don't fall quite underneath the Operations Committee's mandate. So I think anything that would come through the value engineering discussions we would have with the awarded contractor, if Council chooses that course, would be to come back through Council and present what those options are and allow Council to make those choices as to which components, if any, they want to include or exclude from this contract.
Okay, thanks. Second question, just talking about financial implications when we're, this is significantly over budget. I don't pretend to diminish the fact that that parking lot behind what's commonly called, it's parking lot 5, but commonly called the Scotiabank parking lot, is in dire need of repair on many levels. But the price of $540,000 is certainly a steep one, significantly over budget. That tabled with the discussion that the bylaw committee will be having over the next few days about parking meters or the replacement of our parking meters, or perhaps pay and display machines, or how that might go, is also a significant number moving forward on our parking revenues, to the tune of $400,000 or $500,000 as well. So I guess my question around the financing of this, understanding that coming forward in the near future will be some consideration from the bylaw committee of an additional $400,000 or $500,000 for parking meters or pay and display machines, whatever the case may be. There's significant financial and budget implications here, and I'm just wondering how we, it's sort of talked about in the report, but how do we move forward on the financial analysis side of things? I agree that parking lot 5 has been talked about forever and needs to move forward. We need to do it. But I'm also concerned, how do we, would a report come back, or I guess could I ask for a report to come back from the Director of Finance on these two significant capital items? You discuss how there might be some options here as far as increasing fees, but anyway, I think we all need to know that before we enter into $1 million worth of work on our parking system, how it's being paid for. So after this motion, Your Worship, I guess I'd ask for a further motion on that.
Okay, further discussion? Councillor Body.
I too have my concerns when we're a couple $100,000 over budget. The new parking meters, the way I understand it, is they're being forced on us because the new coins that are coming out from the federal government won't work in our machines, correct? This isn't just a voluntary thing that we want to change the meters. We're being forced because the coins are changing. The new coins aren't going to work in our present meters, so that's forcing us to make a decision. And if that's several $100,000 on top of this, I would like to see some kind of more detail on the financials before I can support it too. I can't support passing this tonight with a several $100,000 shortfall in the planned budget.
Councillor Dare.
Just on the issue of the meters, the new coins have brought an issue that council has been aware of for about 5 years to a head, which is that all of our parking meter collection equipment is ancient. The most recent purchase was 10 years ago, and that was used equipment that was purchased 10 years ago. Council has had reports in front of it over the last decade saying that we should set up a schedule of yearly replacement of those. That has never happened, so each machine has gotten older and older. Right now, the ticket spitters or pay and display machines that we have are breaking down and cannot be fixed any longer. The company no longer exists and there are no parts for them. So if it wasn't for the new coins, we would still have this problem, but it wouldn't be something that needs to be solved 3 months ago. It would be something that we could maybe solve next year, but it simply forced an issue that already exists and has existed for several years. So it's unfortunate that two things are happening at the same time, but it's if we had purchased any machines in the last 10 years, it would take an easy fix to allow them to use the new coins, but our machines are just simply too old.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. A question to the Director of Operations. The timing on this, the awarding of this tender, the timing, I guess what I'm thinking of is a delay of 2 weeks to the next council meeting. What does that do to the tender's schedule?
Through you, Your Worship, I think our intent would be that once we awarded the contract, that certainly would give the contractor some onus to mobilize parts and equipment and order supplies while we negotiated what value engineering items we could get, but still we would be coming back to this council in 2 weeks' time to confirm the full scope. So from that standpoint, I think no on-site work would be happening until that next council meeting.
But you'd require we'd have to approve the tender tonight. What does a 2 week delay of not approving this tender tonight?
A delay of 2 weeks from not awarding it tonight would, and awarding it basically in the 2 weeks of the council, would delay our ability to be able to negotiate with that contractor. It might have an additional 2 week delay to the mobilization. So we'd be looking at beginning of June as opposed to the middle of May before a contractor could come on site.
And I'm just concerned, the issues that Councillor Adair spoke of should be before council at the next council meeting, hopefully. And I'm just wondering if we shouldn't be tabling the entire discussion until we get a fulsome financial report. You know, I guess what I'm saying is we're talking about a $500,000 item here, and knowing in 2 weeks there's going to be another $300,000-400,000 item coming forward and coming out of the same pot of money, so to speak. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't be looking at a more fulsome financial report on how we would pay for both of those items at the same time.
Councillor Lemon.
My understanding was, I'd heard that they were looking at the option of leasing the new meters and meter systems, and that way the system doesn't get to the point where I think probably the first, I'm trying to remember the name of the company, but McQuay Works are probably out there on our street. I think that the longer we delay this, it's going to be less opportunity to save money. And I see in this that there are potential savings depending on the contaminated soils that are underneath there. We just don't know completely. And as we have all had experience, cleaning up brownfields is a really major enterprise and very important to the city. And so I don't think there's going to be as much capital cost possibly if we went on to leased meters.
Councillor Dare.
I really don't like talking about parking meters, but the committee has not really gotten its head around making a recommendation to council around whether we purchase, which would require a debenture, or we lease, which would require still an annual outlay of money, or we lease to own. I know that the parking lot is in very, very bad shape and it has to be fixed. However, by the end of this year, I don't know that we'll have any meters still working and accepting coins, and so we'll simply have no revenue coming in to pay for fixing the parking lot. So the conversation here leads me to believe that in fact, having a source of revenue is probably a bigger priority, i.e. the collection of those coins, than the parking lot. Because without the revenue, we really won't have the money to pay for the parking lot. It is not an easy issue, and the bylaw committee, we're dealing in isolation with one thing, the engineering department's dealing in isolation with a completely other thing. They're both important, but it all comes out of parking revenue. And even if we lease, then the annual cost of running parking goes up, which leaves less revenue to pay for maintenance of the parking lots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's too many unknowns, I believe, tonight to make a decision. I would move that we table this issue for the May 14th meeting and ask for a report back on the financial implications of a financial plan in view of the information about the parking meter issue that we just discussed. At least then, if whatever decision we make, whether it's lease, whether it's do one and not the other, at least we'll be doing it with all the information right in front of us. So I'll move that we table for 2 weeks for a further report on the financing of it and the report from the bylaw committee at that meeting as well.
Okay, to the tabling motion, Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's not directly to the tabling motion. It was a question I was going to ask about our purchasing bylaw and the legality or propriety of negotiating with a bidder without awarding the tender. And
I'll allow that question.
Yeah,
it's important.
I just want to understand
in terms of process
whether, in fact, we can do that, because I'm not sure that it's appropriate. But I just want to clarify that in my mind. It's different than an RFP, as I believe. So it would not be appropriate to enter into negotiations without awarding a contract. And I just want to confirm that my understanding is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think through our purchasing policy, I believe that we're not allowed to negotiate with the contractor without first awarding the tender, mainly because that would basically provide some bias to the process.
And that was my understanding. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
That's an important point. So we have a motion to table for 2 weeks. All those in favor? Whoop. City Manager. Yes.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the matter of the report regarding ticket spitters, parking meters, that could turn out to be a much broader question. I know there's discussion at the DIA, there's discussion at Bylaw Committee. I'm a little concerned, and I just raise this caution for you, that we could get into a circumstance where we can't get all of a comprehensive decision on all of the parking meter matters, or parking in general matters, in sufficient time to then move forward on the parking lot. So I just give you that caution.
Okay, we do have thank you for that. We do have a motion to table. The mover of the motion.
Just to that point, I can certainly appreciate that because it is only 2 weeks and it may not, but my only point would be, I think at that point we can have a scope of work, if that's the right word, we'll have more information to make a better, that if we did lease, we're looking at approximately this much more that we need to raise. If we go with straight ticket spitters, it would be approximately, I agree that we may not have a exact dollar amount, but I think we'll have a pretty good estimate of what those costs might be, if we don't have the final one.
Okay, to the tabling motion.
Speaking to the tabling motion, the DIA, as you know, is looking at alternate funding for parking, indirect user pay, which would not necessitate parking meters. And so I think it's going to be a heck of a lot longer than 2 weeks. I think it's going to be about 2 months.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to table? I'm calling the question. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. I too am opposed. That motion is carried. I can only say that a project that this council approved with a budget of that we were presented with of $350,000 that comes in nearly $150,000 plus over budget. The underlying question is why? And this process of doing a capital project, which has been on the books for about 3 years, I believe, being tied so closely to a very contentious issue such as parking and parking meters and so on, and the revenues from that, I think clouds the issue. I think I'm disappointed with this, and I will leave it at that. Moving along, we have minutes from the Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee. What is council's wish? Okay.
Motion I have is I would like a staff report on why the difference between the estimate and the final figures, because that's a huge percentage. That's 50% over. And I think that we could get that in 2 weeks as well.
Okay, Director of Operations.
Actually, if council wishes, I'm happy to speak to the discrepancies with respect to that budget and the actual dollar amounts tonight if you would like. I can certainly explain, when we had last year in 2011, we did have this tendered out. The cost did come in around $400,000. At that time, we felt that the cost may have been elevated due to the fact that we just gone through a fairly significant infrastructure funding program within the region as a whole. Contractors were extremely busy. We thought that we would see at least a 10% reduction in the cost if we retendered again in 2012. We also felt that in the course of the scope of work, that because we knew little about the parking lot and what was underneath it, that there was some risk being carried by the contractor, and we again thought that we would be able to reduce that cost by another $10,000 and bring that down between, if you look at roughly a 20% deduction of a $400,000 contract, you're below the $350 mark. We bumped it up a little bit to deal with any issues we might have encountered from the subsurface, and that brought us, that's how we derived that $350,000 number. Since that time, we've gone through a process of looking at the parking lot design. We've had some concerns expressed by neighboring properties about drainage. We've had to redo the design for the parking lot, essentially raising what I would call the west end of the parking lot to make sure that all the drainage on that parking lot, similar to a site plan approval, remains on our property and is managed on our property. That's required the addition of a retaining wall, which is roughly, based upon some of the prices within the tender, roughly about an additional $50,000 worth of cost. Again, we did not see the types of reductions in costs we anticipated, and in fact, we saw an increase in cost due to some other drainage concerns associated with the design. If that helps.
Thank you. We are, actually I jumped ahead a bit, we're at item number 8. We have a verbal report from Manager of Economic Development and Tourism with regards to the Economic Development Community Report.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report was sent out to council, it's on the website. We sent it out to all the businesses by email, by social media, and on the website. So this is a report that highlights some of the things that have been going on in 2011 and into early 2012. I have a copy for most of the council, except some of them in the gallery who want to read it, so I gave them a copy. You haven't had this copy before, would you like it? Just to give you a bit of a summary of some of the statistics, but some of the projects we've been working on with the DIA Havana project, we now see on 10th Street. This is a part of the beautification project that the DIA is working on and promoting special events. All our main special events are highlighted on 10th Street, and more banners will be coming on 3rd Avenue, 9th and 8th. Again, we'll be branding sort of the downtown as an entertainment district. We'll talk a little bit about the PPG building being sold to a new developer who's tearing part of it down, and in fact will be adding value to the building. Part of the challenge with the PPG building was who needs a building that's 600,000 square feet. So I was just speaking to the agent again today, and hopefully they continue to market that. We had a successful job fair in January, which showed a number of people looking for it, but also a number of employers looking for employees. So there's a real disconnect in the labor pool, and that's part of our challenge, is making sure that those connections happen. We'll talk a little bit about in this report the renovations that are going on in the CP rail station. As you know, the CP rail station the city purchased. It's a heritage building, it can't be torn down. In my mind, CP rail is not doing anything with the building that will detract them from the waterfront. It's now looking much better, and in the next few months, with Sandy Parks working with Pam, you're going to see an awful lot more improvement there. Enterprise Center continues to see a lot of traffic. In fact, it's a 30% increase in the number of people inquiring about small business. It's up over 1,700 last year, and in fact, many of the businesses that you see, home-based or retail, have gone through the Enterprise Center. And of course, the tourism office has seen a significant increase in their website traffic, and a lot of resources and effort put into that part of the program. Now over 78,000 visits. Jamie, you tell me that that's pretty significant, although it's hard to get benchmarking. Just to look at some of the statistics, the Enterprise Center is up to 1,700 clients. Downtown vacancy rate. We've had a lot of discussion about the vacancy rate. Last year in April it was 17%. It's dropped down to 16%. And 16% is about where it's been for the last since 2008. And that's just an indicator. That's an indicator that I take. I just count the number of vacant stores that are leasable from 10th to 8th on 2nd Avenue only. I have done a wider area vacancy rate, and it drops down to 14%. You have 2 new businesses opening tonight in your downtown. I think the downtown vacancy rate will be at its lowest since 2008. We'll do another count shortly. But it highlights the shifting that goes on, but also, you know, the downtown is the heart of our community in terms of visual and commerce, and people continue to tell me from out of town that they like our downtown. They think it's a great place to visit and walk. And of course, you can't get a cup of coffee or a back massage through eBay. You have to experience it. And I welcome everyone to continue to experience our great downtown. So we're hoping some of our other numbers that we measure improve. I mean, we still are coming out of a recession. Economy's slow, but this economy is very diversified, and we still have manufacturing, retail, government sector. I must say that in an economic downturn, this community managed to build student residence, a new recreation center, and a fabulous medical facility all on the waterfront. I think the future is bright. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Furness. And to underscore your presentation tonight, I would, on behalf of council, like to see a more fulsome presentation with PowerPoint that supports. These are very significant initiatives that you have undertaken on behalf of the city and council, and I believe a more fulsome presentation would be helpful to everyone watching, as well as helpful to those of us here at the council desk. Thank you very much. We have a series of minutes from various boards and committees. First one being Recreation Parks Advisory Committee. We have Bylaw Committee, Cultural Advisory Committee, Friends of Harrison Park, and the Owen Sound Downtown Improvement Area. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I'd move the acceptance of the minutes. Oh, but there appears to be some.
Yes, Ms. Coulter.
Your Worship, if I could just speak to the Cultural Advisory Committee, item 10. That's item 12C3. And it's with respect to the Canadian Spirit Project. And although Ms. Eichhorn is not here this evening, she asked that I would make this comment. And appropriately, the motion should read that the Cultural Advisory Committee recommend, as per the city's public art policy, that City Council approve in principle the installation of public art as part of the Canadian Spirit Project, with information regarding the works and location to follow. Eichhorn will be bringing a report at the next council meeting regarding the specific installations and the locations.
Are you okay with that, Councillor McManaman?
I'm fine with that amendment, Your Worship.
This would be a good time to vote on that. Councillor Adair.
No, it's not, Your Worship. I would like an item pulled out of the bylaw committee meetings, item 6A, a letter from Ribfest about an exemption from the signage bylaw, in which the committee said no.
Okay, so we'll pull that part of the bylaw committee minutes out. So, voting on the balance, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. And now with regards to Ribfest. Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's item 6A of the bylaw committees. I'm not sure what page that is. 145, thank you. The bylaw committee received a request under the signage bylaw for Ribfest, asking to be treated in the same manner as we treat nonprofit organizations who rent Castle Beach, which is that they are allowed a period of time before the event to have signs on the fences at Castle Beach saying summer folk is coming or whatever. Because Ribfest is a for-profit organization, they are not allowed to do that, and they've requested that for this Ribfest be given the same opportunity, the same privilege, which would require us to set aside that part of our bylaw. That day, the bylaw committee dealt with cats, bed bugs, signs, barbecuing on the waterfront, and parking. And it was felt that we didn't really want to get into the minutia of the sign bylaw at the time, which needs a complete revision. However, council here has the opportunity, if it wishes, to exempt RibFest from those particular parts of the sign bylaw and allow them to be treated the same way as a nonprofit who are using Castle Beach. And that would be my motion, that in fact we grant their request to be treated the same way this year as an exemption from the bylaw as if they were a not-for-profit organization.
Okay, the motion is, Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would be opposed to that motion. I don't know, they are a for-profit event, not a non-for-profit, so I would not support treating them like a non-for-profit.
Any other members of council? Any comments to the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We are now at, we have in-camera minutes for approval. Move. The in-camera meeting of City Council held on April 16th. Moved by Councillor McManaman. No? Who would like to move those? Councillor Boddy?
I would move those, Your Worship.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. We are at the point in our meeting where we have other business, and there were two items. Actually, there were three items of other business. We have Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first one is in reference to community complaints that I've been getting about 2nd Avenue East, north of Moores Hill, and the speed on that particular residential street. We had a traffic report done that I believe stated that that should be a 40K zone. It's presently posted at whatever the regular speed is in the city, which is 50. The neighbors are wondering if, since the city has a report saying that the speed limit should be lowered to 40, do they really need to go through the whole process of getting a petition and then coming to council and going through that whole process, or is the fact that there is a report saying it should be 40 sufficient in making that happen? So if someone can answer that question, that would be great. Oh, sorry, 2nd Avenue West. Yes, sorry, 2nd Avenue West.
Okay. We'll go to Director of Operations for a response.
Yeah, certainly through you, Your Worship. I'm not specifically familiar with the report that you've referenced, but I would be happy to, through the Operations Advisory Committee, bring that report forward and look at it and what would be required to lower that speed limit if that's the case.
That's great. That answers my question. Thank you. The other issue is around the demise of our junior B team, the Greys, and ending a very long and storied hockey history in the city. It gets around to the issue of ice allocation, and there are now 6 hours a week of ice, approximately 6 hours, that had been allocated to the Greys. Last April, we received a letter from AAA Hockey asking us if we could find ice time for them. We have told them, no, you can't have any ice time because it's all been allocated. We now have 6 hours of ice time that unfortunately is freed up. And the junior Bs paid the full rate. We had talked, and the committee, the Parks Committee had said that if AAA was to come, they would pay the full rate as well. What I would be interested in doing is basically making a motion to contact AAA and see if they are interested in those hours at the full rate. Now, our ice allocation policy does not speak specifically to AAA. Well, it does, and it puts them on the bottom of the list, but there are two parts of the ice allocation policy. One is that the city has the first right on that, on all ice time, if it's in the best interest of the city or for something for the city. The second is that all decisions about ice allocation are council's, and council's decision on ice allocation are final. Those are two things that are in the policy. It is our ice. We can allocate it as we see fit according to policy. I think that this might be one of those instances where our strategic plans, which is to be a regional center and to use our facilities to do that, is maybe out of alignment with the policies that we have. So I guess my motion then would be to contact AAA Hockey and ask them if they can use this time at the full rate, and if not, I guess we throw it back into the pool. That's my suggestion. I think we have an opportunity here to rent those hours dollar for dollar of what we were getting, and also to continue our quest of being a regional center and bring a regional hockey team into the city.
Okay, we have a motion. Councillor Body.
I don't disagree with Councillor Adair. However, we've had a Parks and Rec committee look at this and look at this. There's a lot of public appointment. A lot of people volunteer to sit in those committees to consider this type of thing. I'm not sure that it's appropriate for us just to ignore them and not that we can't make the decision, but I think when we've got public people appointed to consider these types of things, we should give them the opportunity to consider them. I will hear what everyone else has to say, but I am likely to bring a motion, depending on others' comments, that we table this motion and see what the committee says, unless anyone's got a different opinion.
Councillor Lemon.
Your Worship, I like the idea of bringing the AAA hockey team here, but as correctly pointed out by Councillor Body, we do have an ice allocation policy group, and it would be nice to consult with them. We can overrule them and say, no, I think we should bring in the AAA, but I think it would be wrong not to do the consultation with them first on it and get their input, and then we will make the ultimate decision.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. And I too can agree with the sentiment, but I worry we have this ice allocation policy, which we have reviewed yearly for 3 years now. With most times that it's reviewed, this council chamber is full with all the interested parties. I think it would be, when this issue came up around AAA, we heard quite loud and clear that ice time, that Owen Sound residents should receive priority in the selection of ice time. So while I can agree with the idea, I think it would be above and beyond the committee, as Councillor Body has correctly pointed out, who have done a lot of work on this. I would suggest the committee may come back and say, well, your policy doesn't say this, so what do you want us to do? We have a policy, and if council chooses not to follow it, that's council's wish, but I don't think it certainly won't meet the policy, and that policy was arrived at after broad public consultation. So the motion, I won't be supporting the motion.
Okay. Councillor Twaddle.
The ice allocation was made through the committee according to the policy, including the time for the graze. Now, a user that had been granted ice at the full rate is unable to use the ice. The only issue around making a decision on who gets that ice is timing. Because all of the groups that applied for ice were allocated ice on the basis of the policy and availability, and I think by and large their needs were met. So if this had happened in September or October, and the ice was there and ready to be used, we would have, we would move more quickly than we are now. It's not as though we have a list of people who applied for ice that didn't get their needs virtually met. So I think this is a circumstance that may not have been anticipated in the policy, but I don't think it runs counter to the policy. I won't support the motion to table or refer it to the committee. If you make it, I won't.
Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship. Just in answer, or just to discuss Councillor Twaddle's point further, I think the policy is quite clear. When ice times turn back, it goes into a hierarchy of the attack were first on the list, then the grays, and then it goes to minor sports groups. We talked about AAA. I think those user groups would say if other prime time has come available, that may change. They would change their request, and there may be adult groups out there that did not get their request that may also want that time. So, again, anyway, those are my comments.
Okay. So we do have a motion. Councillor Lemon, to the motion.
Yeah, earlier this evening we discussed budget. And if it goes into the regular mix, what would be the economic loss over the season to the city of taking a substantially lower rate for that ice time? Because that's going to have to be, we're going to have to find funding for that. Do we know?
Councillor McManaman.
Well, it'll be 30% less of that 5 or 6 hours a week. Well, most certainly a minor group would take it. You can be quite sure of that. So, and the only, to Councillor Lemon's point, if our ice allocation policy has not been based on revenue generation for the city, perhaps it, if that's this, perhaps it could be, but it is not right now. It's based on minor sports groups first.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Adair.
A couple issues. That's one of the difficulties with the present ice allocation policy, is that it works to sell off as much of the ice time as cheaply as possible. And that is the policy that we have. But we've already sold these 6 hours for the regular rate. If we throw them back into the pool, which there is a part of the policy that speaks to that, then it would be allocated to minor groups, and we would lose 30% of the taxpayers of Owen Sound, who we are supposed to represent, would lose 30% of that funding. I like policies. Policies are there for a reason. This is one policy that has been worked on every year, but I would hate to think that we are so beholden to a policy that when an opportunity presents itself, all we can do is put our head down and say, oh, we have a policy that doesn't let us do that. Things have changed since ice was allocated and since we went through the ice allocation policy, and that is that we no longer have a junior B team. We know that there's a regional AAA team that would like to come into the city, and my motion is to open the door to them and say, yes, we would like to replace one regional hockey team with another regional hockey team, seeing as that we just spent 5 hours this afternoon at the library saying we want it to be a regional center. Again, I think that our ice allocation policy does not speak to our strategic plan, which is to be a regional center. And I'm wondering if our strategic plans and our goals and objectives as a council don't supersede our individual policies. I would think that strategic plans are in fact at the top of the hierarchy, and that the policies are a way of causing our strategic plan to happen. I don't have a difficulty with sending this to parks, but the policy speaks specifically to ice allocation is done by, the final word on ice allocation is this council. It is not one of our advisory committees. It is not some other group. It is this group, this council, this elected group that makes those decisions. I guess if council is absolutely not interested in having AAA here in Owen Sound, then we could maybe make that decision tonight and say, let's not do this at all, and then we don't need to go through this. But if we do have an interest in it, then we probably need to start either passing my motion or sending this to a committee who would then bring a report back to us, who then we just still have to make that decision. But I think time is running out because everyone's trying to get their ice allocated, whether it's here or Chesley or wherever. We need to make some decision in a fairly short time, given that last week we didn't know this, that we were losing a regional team.
Okay, Councillor Purdon and Councillor Boddy.
So a few points. I think we still are a regional centre, even if we don't move forward with this motion. I think it is a pretty good example of kind of competing interests around a policy that is difficult to apply. In situations like that, I think it's better to take a more careful look and go through the committee, so some of the complexities that have already come up at this circle can be explored a little bit more. So there would be the benefit of a report, a more fulsome report for this group. I don't think we're, at least maybe I'm not a hockey player, but I don't feel like this is kind of a make or break, deal breaker time crunch right now. I think we can take the process of going through the committee, looking at it, and bringing back a recommendation. So that would be the approach I would advise.
Councillor Boddy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Having heard everyone's discussion, I won't move to table it to the committee for the simple reason, as Councillor McManaman has pointed out. The committee is going to look at the policy that they already have. I'm pretty confident they don't want to start charging into making changes to the policy that would make it difficult. We do have a policy in place. We do have more than AAA boys. We also had AAA girls that were interested in some ice time. We have some various men's groups that pay full price that wanted different times. It's not guaranteed that it's only going to be minor hockey that applies. And I'm sorry, Councillor Adair, but by making the argument that, you know, it's an absolute that you either support me or you don't follow what we just discussed today, it doesn't quite cut it. I think it's appropriate that we passed a policy. It's a fair policy. Staff can look at it. They can allocate it. There's no guarantees that minor hockey is going to be grabbing so much time. They can only take on so many hours. It's possible that they will take on more hours in Owen Sound that they're going to be paying to rent elsewhere, and we may increase our revenue anyway. I won't be supporting the motion. I won't be bringing a motion to send it to committee.
Okay, any other speakers? All those in favor? Opposed? Let's do that again. All those in favor? All those opposed? This is great. I never get to do this. Thank you. I'm in favor. That motion is carried. Okay, Councillor Adair, did you have another item? Director of Community Services has an other item.
Thank you, Worship. Actually, 2 items, if I could. Just happy to provide for Council the 2012 edition of Doors Open Ontario. Owen Sound is featured on page 50, and this celebrates Owen Sound's 10th year as a participant in Doors and Trails Open Owen Sound. The second item is the Owen Sound Community and Summer Activities Guide. This guide has a tremendous amount of information for you and your family as you look for ways to be active and healthy this summer. There's a new section this year, brand new, on costs to rent various facilities. There's a great section on seniors, so special thanks to Pat Bryan and my department and all the other departments that provide the great information that makes this a tremendous publication. So I hope the community enjoys both of those pieces of publication.
Yes.
Point of order, Your Worship. I would like to win, you know, things, but I don't think that you called that.
Did I not count right?
Correctly. If you voted in favor, that would be 4-4, which is a tie, which means that the motion would be defeated.
Yes, and I think
as
the clerk
like
is going to agree with you, and I'm going to go back to counting school. Yes.
You counted correctly, but when there is an equality of votes, it will be defeated.
Yes, and that's, I appreciate that. Thank you, Councillor Adair. That point of order is in order. So we're done with that issue. Thank you to the Director of Community Services for this lovely segue into the Doors Open, which happens on June the 2nd and 3rd of this year. And this great community services guide, it's a great tool to keep around. Yes, let's quickly discuss those. And okay. Now, I have some items of other business, and I'll count them. I have 2. I have one. One is a reminder for the Volunteer Appreciation Event, which is this Saturday, May 5th at 2:30 at the St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, the Georgian Bay Children's Choir Spring Concert, and any volunteer that has yet to pick up their ticket needs to visit the clerk's office to do so. We also have, for Council's information, a very kind letter and a book of photographs from a group of students from OSCVI, from the Canadian and World Studies program, who participated in the VIMI at 95 War and Remembrance Tour from Owen Sound. And this is a thank you letter from Dave Alexander, the teacher and the tour leader, who took the students to VIMI, thanking each one of us for our pins that we all contributed to. The kids were thrilled with that, as well as a letter I provided to the Chairman Graham Coulter of Lane End Parish, and in appreciation of that, they do have pins here for each member of council. So it's a great tribute to some terrific overseas partnerships, and these are quite interesting pins. Over 147 years, and it's VIMI 95, and it recognizes Grey County and our contribution at VIMI. So, thank you for that. Moving along, we do have a pin for each member of council. So, we have no further items of other business. Motion that the committee rise, please. Thank you, Councillor Adair. We're back in regular council. We need a resolution adopting proceedings in committee of the whole, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by David Adair, that the action taken in committee of the whole in considering public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business be hereby confirmed by this council.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Notice is a motion. New business by resolution. Thanks. Bylaws, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by David Adair, that bylaw numbers 2012-055, 056, 057, 058, 059, 060, 061, 062, and 063 be hereby passed and enacted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We're adjourned. At number 19.